Yeah.
So, man.
What do you think would have happened if he died?
Oh,
Civil war?
do you know what? I said that to my parents actually today. Yeah, man. I mean, if he would have gone, it would have been madness would have happened, wouldn't it? Really?
Yeah. Remember when they ransacked that place? I don't know what that place is called. When they all went in with masks and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah. Not the White House.
The other place.
I know what you mean.
Yeah. So if that's what they could do there, I'm sure all hell would have broken loose.
Yeah.
So what about yourself? Like you've come here to absorb.
I was here last year, once or twice. There's a bloke called Bob, quite a prominent speaker. A few others. Wendell, the guy who street mic.
Yeah.
I had a conversation with him. I'm taking it all in, mate, really. The religions and whatnot. I'm not overly religious, but I mean...
What about Muslims and Islam?
I mean, different, really. I mean, I've got no...
You want to have a convo about it?
If you want, man. I mean,
Just ask questions, answers, see how it goes, and then form your own judgment at the end of it?
Yeah, not on camera?
We can do it off camera if you want. On camera, the thing is, normally I have my discussions on camera.
Sure.
Because the discussions are so fruitful and so good.
Sure.
But I also give a warning. Yeah, I always give a warning to somebody that if you feel it's getting uncomfortable or rude, just walk away.
Sure.
But the thing, these interactions, the reason why they're so good, because I can just suss people out. And I think these sorts of conversations should be on camera. Because I don't know if you agree or disagree, especially when it comes to Christians and Muslims, there are certain powers that try to divide based upon their own political kind of means. So I try to celebrate these sorts of discussions.
I don't want to be like getting the wrong foot. Like when I'm hearing about Islam, maybe you can clear a couple of things.
No, but
up.
that's what I'm saying. It would be good. I don't mind. I give you a green light to say it however you want. You want to go harsh, you can go harsh.
Just clear up like this with this Aisha thing and achieve the 6 and he consummated at 9.
You want to do it on camera?
Not particularly, but can you explain that? How does that work?
Yeah, so in Islam there's a principle. Like if I was to ask you, what age should a woman be ready for marriage?
Yeah.
What age would you say?
For marriage? Well,
Or consummation of marriage?
So you're asking me is in 2024? Or like
now?
I mean,
according to your opinion.
A 6-year-old, no way, shape or form can a 6-year-old marry.
Yeah.
It ain't happening. What age? I'd probably say 16.
16.
I think so.
Why 16?
It's a good question. I don't know about brain development and blah, 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 but I guess it's still developing up to then. I think 16, I'm saying in this country you can drive at 17, I think you're voting at 18, but it's just a number I picked. I mean, you've got your teenage years, you're still developing, so I'm just going to stick at 16. I can't give you a definitive answer.
When do you think a woman is ready for consummation?
I mean, it's not really something I think
Scientifically?
about. Yeah, sure. It's not something I think about.
Puberty? That's typically what people say. When your body is ready, then you're ready.
But then again, there's other factors, like, because there's the age.
Got you.
You know what I mean? So,
Okay.
it's a tricky one.
So I just wanted to garner where you are.
9 years old.
So,
Definitely.
so she was betrothed at the age of 6. That doesn't mean they're married. She was betrothed. The Prophet waited for her to get ready.
Yeah.
Now in Arabia, the age, in fact, even in the 1980s, there's a journal article. Now, I don't know when you're talking about evidence, what you regard as evidence.
Yeah.
So scientifically, what you regard as evidence is peer-reviewed journals. So there's someone called Marcia Herman Giddens in the 1980s.
Right.
She said that in our textbooks, medical textbooks, it says 12 is the age that a girl is ready for intercourse. She says because she was a medical woman, she said from my observations of the development of the breasts and of periods, it's 9. Yeah, that's Marcia Herman Giddens. She's off the US.
Who is she, sorry?
Marcia Herman Giddens. She's a doctor.
Okay.
And she's written a peer-reviewed article, and the article you can find online. That's why I've given you her name.
Okay.
And normally, also, the reason why I have the conversations online, because if people think I'm just gassing, because I've given certain names, they can go home and they can check it.
I've got a question.
Yeah.
Personal question.
Do you want me to just finish that? Because
Sure, go for it.
yeah, because I want you to kind of just see where it's coming from and then have an informed thing.
Yeah.
So that's what she said. Now, Islamically, there's 3 criteria for us for marriage. One is she has to be physically ready.
Okay.
If she's not physically ready, it's impermissible. Number 2, she has to be mentally ready.
Okay.
And number 3, it has to be socially acceptable.
This is Quran. This is Islam.
Yeah, Islam.
And but is there any age? Is there any age specifics associated to that?
Yeah, so what we say is actually in line with modern day science. So if you look in the Nature 2017 journal, it says that there's no age for maturity.
Okay.
Yeah, and in Islam, that's the criteria that we have. When a girl starts menstruating,
Yeah.
and she's mentally ready,
Yeah.
and it's socially acceptable, then she can get married.
Okay.
But again, before she gets married, she has to be asked her permission. So we have that in something called the hadith, which are the sayings of the Prophet.
Right.
Now, you only ask someone's permission if they are mentally at a certain level, isn't it? You can't ask a child, well, like they do nowadays, do you want to be a boy, do you want to be a girl?
Sure.
You can't.
Right.
You only ask a girl when she's mentally ready. So there's that mental side of it. Physically ready, Aisha herself,
Was she asked, Aisha?
yeah.
Oh.
You can't do it without asking.
Okay.
And even when the Prophet passed, even during the marriage to the Prophet, she could have asked for something called the khula. Khula is when a woman is unhappy with the marriage,
Yeah.
she can ask to nullify that marriage.
Okay.
If there's something called the harm principle. If she feels that she's being harmed,
Okay.
sexually, physically, mentally, however, if she feels she's being harmed, she can nullify that marriage. In Judaism, you can't do that. There's something called the get, which ironically you can't get unless the man gives it. So divorce by a woman is not permissible within Judaism. In Christianity, in the Bible, I'm sure you know, you listen to Bob and these guys, but within Islam, a woman can get a khula. Aisha didn't get a khula. And on top of that, it was something that was considered normal. That's why you even got Jordan Peterson as well. Jordan Peterson, Jordan Peterson is a Christian. He was asked, do you have any issues with that? He goes, no, because in those times, it was something that was permissible. And we even have our royal family members and even people in England who are doing similar stuff. So the age is not much of an issue. So those are the criteria. She has to be asked her permission, she has to be physically ready, and it has to be socially acceptable. If it's not socially acceptable, if she's not mentally ready, and she's being physically harmed, she can nullify that marriage. She didn't nullify that marriage, and on top of that, she, even after the Prophet passed away, she didn't say that she was coerced, she was unhappy. She continued narrating about the Prophet. She didn't say this happened or that happened. And even the people that were around at that time, they looked for any excuse to disparage him, because they were idol worshippers, and here was an individual who was saying there's only one God. So naturally they would look for any excuse. Not one of them ever said, this guy is this.
So I've got a question.
Yeah,
so
of
like
course.
in 2024, with Islam, what's the stance? How would that work today? In your opinion or in Islam's opinion?
Yeah, so that's why, remember the third criteria,
Yeah.
it has to be socially acceptable.
Right.
So if I'm living in this country, or we're living in this country, like you said, there are many factors. One of those factors is the law of the land. If a Muslim is staying in a country, we follow the law of the land.
Yeah.
Number two, also like you said, mentally, there's something called childhood. Childhood was not something that was present back in the days, pre-World War II or pre-World War I.
Right.
I think that came like through the Renaissance or the Industrial Revolution. That's when it kind of childhood came in, because before, mate, you know what happened? As soon as the child was of a certain age, they were like, off you pop, start earning, start living. That's why kids over here, you send them up chimneys, they were down in the mines, because there was no such thing as childhood. Childhood came afterwards. Now as society has kind of gone in a different direction, the direction is children aren't ready. There's something called childhood, and mentally they're not ready. This is the law. No, today, in fact, if you actually look, Muslims are actually the least when it comes to surveys that marry young. It's mostly, you'll find in India that happens, in America, in the conservative areas amongst the, I don't want to label certain kind of groups, but there are certain Christians that it happens among. In Africa it happens because of course there's a lot of poverty, and they can't afford to have their kids lingering around.
Right.
When they're of a certain age, you start getting married, and boom, you move out and you do your thing. You work, you get married, You survive on your own because we can't survive Ebola, HIV, all of that sort of stuff.
I've got a question.
Of course.
Personal question.
Go for it.
I don't know, I've got a feeling you might know what I'm going to say, but so, I don't know if you've ever got children. If you have got children, so you've got a daughter and she's 9, would you let her have sex with an adult, with a man?
I've already answered that, isn't it? In today's day and age, it's not socially acceptable.
Would you allow your 9-year-old to have sex with a man?
Today?
Yes.
She wouldn't be mentally ready. No girl's mentally
say
ready.
no?
Of course I would. Yeah, no. Not 9, not 10, not 11, not 12, not 13. Bro, 18? No.
Okay.
Law allows her 18? No.
Okay.
20? Okay, it depends how I've raised her. She might be ready by 20. Shall I tell you, you talked about brain
One more
development.
question,
Of
sorry.
course, go.
So, around the world now,
Yeah.
in 2024, do you think it's acceptable with Islam that 9-year-olds or 6-year-olds getting married, 9-year-olds having sex? Would you agree with that?
Islam doesn't encourage that.
No, but do you agree with it?
If a 9-year-old today, undeveloped,
Yeah.
mentally undeveloped, no, of course not. This is ridiculous.
What if you think, okay, not quite, you're evading the question. So like, is it...
You're talking about the social aspect, isn't it?
Well, just Islam in general, because I think it is still being done today. So do you agree with that, or
I thought I answered your question in a bit more detail than you asked.
All right.
But tell me if I'm evading it again. I'll try to be direct. If the 9-year-old is not mentally ready, she's not physically ready, and it's not socially. If she was mentally ready
Yeah.
and physically ready, then it's not socially acceptable. If you're in an Amazon rainforest or a jungle, then who are we to tell them, oh, you can't do that or this or that? It's up to them, isn't it? That's why I'm saying that Islam doesn't say, oh, you living in a...
So if it happens in a country that it is acceptable, would you agree with that, or you got no stance?
9-year-old. Well, I was born and bred in the UK, so I know people with the society that I'm living in, 9-year-olds aren't developed here. So I'm biased.
In a country, forget the UK, in a country where...
Which country? Give me an example.
I don't know.
Saudi Arabia?
I don't know. Yeah, wherever it's...
I've been Saudi Arabia. 9-year-old is still too young nowadays.
Okay. Do you know anywhere in the world where it's happening today? I don't know.
There are statistics of it happening in India and the US, and in certain tribes in
But you condemn
Africa. Yeah. I think 9 is in this day and age is too young.
I agree.
But the thing is, for me to go to a African tribe and tell them, I don't know how they're functioning, I don't know how they're upbringing their kids. For me to go and start enforcing my way of life, I can tell them that, look, these are the 3 criteria in Islam.
Yeah.
They might not accept Islam. I can explain to them logically that, look, that's the criteria. If they say, look, she's mentally ready, she's this, she's that, she's going to starve, she's that, I say, look, you guys know your situation best. Me, from a Eurocentric point of view and this and that, I can't really say, but if she fulfills that 3 criteria and that country says it's socially acceptable, it's up to you guys. You do what you want. You see? Because I'm not going to enforce my view upon you. Me born and bred here and knowing how kids are and this, I'm not going to go to some next country and start saying, yeah, you guys should do this. I say, look, this is the 3 criteria that we have.
Yeah.
If you think that's the criteria, it's up to you. You do what you want. Me condemning it or this or that, I don't think that's really my position. I would feel like 9-year-old, is she ready? That would be my question. And it would be up to them to prove if she is or not. And it would be up to me to prove, again, that she's not. Do you see? So the burden of proof would be on me if I'm saying, no, don't do it.
That's a very, the answer you've given is very, you've explained it really well.
Thank you. I did try to be, because I know it comes up. What about...
Sounds a bit sticky. It sounds a bit sticky. Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Because then, you know what happens? I didn't give one aspect, which you'll probably hear, which is people would say, oh, how old was Mary when she got married to Joseph? Or how old was Isabella? And what does the Talmud say about getting married to 3-year-olds?
Sure.
But again, those are other case studies that a person can look into. But I'm giving you the Islamic principle because you asked me from Islam point of view. So, what's your name? My name is Ishan.
Rob.
Rob. Nice to meet you, mate. So, Rob, let's be frank here.
Yeah.
You know I'm frank. I'm not going to bullcrap you. Be as open and honest as you want and blasé as you want.
Yeah.
Based upon what you've seen and what you've heard about Islam and this and that, what questions do you have? Or what concerns you?
That was that issue with Aisha. What else was there? There was it's gone out of my brain now, but I mean, again, I can't say I'm like a practicing Christian and whatnot, but I've been brought up as a Christian. Went to a C of E primary school, Church of England,
Yeah.
and whatnot. So I just feel like I don't want to be rude. It's almost like Christianity is the religion of love, and it seems Islam is the religion of power. That's the vibe I get from it. But maybe I'm wrong.
What gives you that impression?
I don't know. It just seems like with the teachings, with the Bible, and what I'm no proper religious person. I'm quite relaxed. It just feels there's just a lot of teachings. I can't give you exact examples, but that's the vibe. Where with Islam, it's I don't know. And at what was the other one with the wife or multiple wives, and maybe it's just that it's a myth. I don't know. But that's, again, it's what you hear. Maybe it's hearsay. I don't know.
So here's the thing, I'll give you a couple of examples that maybe you're familiar with. In the Old Testament, you probably heard the term Amalek.
No.
So Amalek in the Old Testament, it's in Book of Samuel, chapter 15, verse 9. Yeah. So over there, they're commanded to kill men, women, children, infants, babies, donkeys, cattle. Now that is a verse very concerning. Because it's talking about killing infants, babies.
The Old Testament.
Old Testament, yeah. And you got Benjamin Netanyahu now quoting Amalek.
It's the Israel.
Yeah, Israel, yeah. So he's quoting Amalek. Now that's very concerning. Yeah. And when certain people come and start saying, look, this is the problem with Islam, I say, look, let's do a like for like sort of thing.
Yeah.
If this is in the Old Testament, which of course a Christian accepts because they believe it's revealed by God, and God is Jesus, he's part of the Trinity. So Jesus is the author of the Old Testament as well, by default.
Don't we lean towards the New Testament now, don't we?
As Christians you do, but you don't disregard the Old Testament, because you have to acknowledge the Old Testament, the New Testament follows on from the Old Testament. And the author is Jesus. So when it talks about Amalek and the killing of infants and babies, we say, look, very simply, let's do a like for like. Can you find us a similar verse in the Quran where we're told to kill babies? And the answer would be no. In Book of John, Gospel of John, Jesus says, and it's a parable, but again, how a person interprets that parable is, I'll leave that to you. Jesus says, those that didn't accept me as king, bring them here and kill them. Right. The Prophet, can you give me an example in the life of the Prophet where he said, those people that don't accept me as a prophet, bring them here and then kill them? No such example. In fact, in the Quran it says, in fact, you as a non-Muslim, one of the questions that even Bob asked as well.
Am I a non-believer? Is that right?
You're a non-believer. According to the Jews, you're a goyim.
I hope I'm okay.
Yeah, you're goyim according to the Jews. To the Muslims, if you're living under the Muslims, you're under the protection of the Muslims. And
Sharia law, no.
Sharia law. Now let's just pretend you're under Sharia law now, yeah?
I hope not.
No. Let's see. Let's go with this thought experiment. Rob, yeah?
That's it, man.
Rob's in Sharia law. Oh my God, what's going on? Sharia law. Yeah. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said that if somebody harms a disbeliever that's living under the protection of the Muslims, they have harmed me. If they have harmed me, they have harmed God. Now this is something, I don't know if you're familiar, whenever someone insults the Prophet, the Muslims are up in arms. So for a Muslim to even consider harming the Prophet is ridiculous. Okay. And on top of that, you conflate that with harming God. It's something unimaginable to a Muslim. You might be thinking, okay, fair enough. But what if I told you that the ruling is that, and this is the Maliki school of thought. Imam Malik said this and Layth said this. These are two scholars, who we follow. If you unjustly kill a non-Muslim that's living under your lands, unjustly you kill them, the punishment for that Muslim, guess what it is?
It's not good?
Guess, take a guess.
It's not death, is it?
It's death.
Okay.
There's no ifs, there's no buts. Okay. You kill a non-Muslim under your protection, it's game over for you. Okay. death, you're thinking that doesn't happen and that wouldn't happen in these Western countries. You imprison a non-Muslim that's living under your protection. You imprison them. We're told, according to the Hanbali school of thought, we're told that in that regard, as the Muslims, you have to exhaust your means to go and free that individual that's living under your protection.
Okay.
I don't know about you, but post 9/11, certain British citizens, they were accused of certain things, and when they were abroad, there wasn't that thing. Like Mozambique is a prime example, a case study, that you had MI5 that went there, heard and saw what he was going through, and now he's a free man, but there was no help, no assistance given to him. He done his time, he ended up being innocent, but he said, I received very little help. Now, just bear this in mind, yeah? Imprisoned, harmed. The Prophet said harm, if you're harmed. On top of that, the Prophet said that if you oppress a disbeliever that's living under Sharia law, you oppress them. On the day of judgment, the Prophet will be advocating on the side of the disbeliever. That's how much we favor, and these references, they're clear. Yeah, they're narrations of the Prophet, they are instances in the books of jurisprudence. I can even give you two examples also. At the time of Ali, who was a caliph, a disbeliever had been killed. And the Muslim was brought forth. Then they asked the disbeliever's family, it's up to you now, what happens to this Muslim? They said, we don't want to kill him because we feel that justice has been done. They were remunerated. He was free. At the time of Umar bin Abdul Aziz, something very similar happened, and the non-Muslim family said, we want him killed. And they were killed.
I've got another question.
Go ahead.
Your name again?
Zishan.
Zishan. Yeah, Rob. Zishan. So, okay, I could be speaking out of turn here, but don't take this.
Go for it, mate. I'm used to it. Speaker's corner.
We've got Islam, we've got Christianity. Why is it with Islam, the religion, there's what they say radical Islam or Islamists, but with Christianity, there doesn't seem to be many radical Christians or Christianists. Why is that? Why do some people on the Islam religion take it really the wrong way and do harm? But you don't hear it on the Christian side. Why is it?
It does occur on the Christian side. It's not popularized that much. For example, have you heard of the Lord's Resistance Army? It's a Christian extremist group.
Okay.
Yeah, that's one amongst many. But if you go to, for example, just delve a little bit into politics, you notice, for example, if I was to ask, why do you think the Iraq war took place?
I'm not sure.
According to what you've heard on the grapevine.
And they thought there was weapons of mass destruction?
But what do analysts typically say it was because of? Oil.
Correct.
You heard that, yeah?
Yeah.
Now, even if you look at the old documents in British, amongst the British, you've got somebody called Lord Crewe, and you can check him out yourself.
Right.
He was the Foreign Secretary, and there are clear documented evidence for him saying it's within our interest to keep the Middle East divided, especially the oil principalities, i.e. Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, because the Middle East is very oil rich, and the world relies on oil, fossil fuels. So this is something which anyone that delves, even on the surface of politics, they know occupation has been taking place in the Middle East. Iraq, Obama in an interview on CNN admitted we shouldn't have been there. It was wrong. Yeah, the Iraq war. Then because of invasion of the Iraq war, there's somebody called Robert Pape who said before the Iraq war, there was no suicide bombing in Iraq. It was. I'm talking about suicide bombing. Yeah, there was no suicide. Just one second, let me talk about this, yeah? Then you can come back to me. There was no suicide bombing that took place. After the invasion, that's when suicide bombing started. The literacy rate was 80% plus. After the bombing, it was less than 10%. The country was decimated. It was destroyed. They dropped bombs on there that were, I don't know if you've heard, there's something called depleted uranium, which when that bomb drops, the people are left cancerous. They get cancer. And there's something called white phosphorus, which when it drops, it melts the skin and goes to the bone. This happened in Iraq. And Obama admitted that it was because of our illegal invasion that then born ISIS. ISIS was then born. Now what Secretary John Kerry said, he said we saw ISIS grow. Just like any other extremist group, you know, the security services got the eye on this sort of stuff. But he says we allowed them to grow. But here's the reason that he gives. You can check this on YouTube. The reason why we allowed them to grow was to counteract the leader of Syria, Bashar al-Assad. We wanted them to weaken him because he was an ally, of course, of Russia. Yeah, we want to weaken Russia. And when we allowed them to grow, then Bashar became strong because he had Russian strength, but then by then ISIS had already grown. So here's the thing. Iraq, illegal invasion and oil. Then ISIS allowed to grow because of Syria.
If we, sorry, I don't want to jump in.
No, you can if you want.
So if we go back to like 9/11,
Yes.
and it seems when that pilot went in the Twin Towers and he was saying what he was saying, I'm guessing he was a Muslim or Islam. Again, and he was saying Allah Akbar or whatever he was saying. Why did he do that?
The person that talks about that or associated with that, he says the reason is foreign occupation. You come to our lands, you harm our people. In fact, in the US, one of his reasons was, did you know that there was an American base in Saudi Arabia? Did you know that?
No.
Just imagine if I told you that there's a Saudi base here in the UK, military base. America has at least 50 American bases worldwide. People aren't happy with that. More. Yeah.
It's necessary.
Much more. Well, that's the thing. If somebody then says, as Iran, we need to have bases because it's necessary, because that's a different argument in itself.
Sorry, but I know you're giving
I'm not justifying it, by the way.
I know, but you're giving a really broad answer, and this is beyond my scope in terms of knowledge, and this is a lot of. But just so it's got nothing with the Islam religion.
Just give me 1 sec, though. Let me just give me 1 sec. Yeah, it's good. It's good. It'll just help me to wrap up the answer.
Sure.
Number one, foreign occupation. Palestine was under the protectorate of the British Empire. The British Empire, because of somebody called Balfour, Lord Balfour, he requested it for the Jews, and then the British gave it away. Yeah, and ever since then, there's been an issue. Palestine, Muslims versus the Jews, or it's not even that actually. It's Israelis versus the Palestinians. Iraq, they lied about weapons of mass destruction. In Libya, they killed Gaddafi's son. In Iran, 1951, there was somebody that was democratically elected. He was somebody called Mohammad Mossadegh. He was a leader, democratically elected. BP was the company, British Petroleum. They had issues with what he was doing with BP, and then they got rid of him.
So what you're saying, can I just say? So
what I'm saying is there's foreign intervention.
Right.
Then when foreign intervention takes place, there's bombing,
So what you're
drone
saying,
attacks.
What you're saying is these atrocities are happening not because of the religion itself. It's because it's for
Politics.
retaliation.
Yeah,
It's
politics.
got nothing to do with the religion.
There's a nun, ex-nun called Karen Armstrong. She's written a book called Fields of Blood. She used to be a nun. She doesn't follow any religion anymore, to my knowledge. She says that she's looked into all of this.
Right.
All of these atrocities that even Christians do as well.
Sure.
She says most of these things, if not all I think is a bit of a stretch, most of these are to do with politics.
Right.
For example, if you look before, when Palestine was Palestine, Muslims and the Jews lived in harmony. For example, even in Spain, Andalus, when it was under Muslim control for 800 years.
So I wouldn't notice that.
No, that's why I'm
I don't
saying.
wanna be- I'm pleading ignorant.
That's fine. And the reason why I'm telling you this is because you can then go home, I can tell you, and the stuff that I've mentioned, you can Google it and you can check it. Yeah, and that's why I think cameras are helpful sometimes for you to do your own research and then come back to me and say, you said this to me last week, you're wrong. And then I can be
What's your channel, YouTube channel?
a Smile2jannah extra.
Can you write that down?
I'll write it down for you. So because of foreign occupation, foreign invasion, interference, and all of that, look, for example, you might think, yeah, foreign intervention, interference. Bro, Northern Ireland, they made it out to be Catholics versus the Protestants. But you know what it was? Yeah, it was the British that had gone there and set up bases there and sent over the Protestants there. And even till today, bro, it's big problems because you've got a majority Catholic population that have got problems with the Protestants up north. And again, the British are getting involved. And when you go to the Irish people, they put bombs here and all of that. You just need to type in IRA history. Even when you look at the Tamil Tigers, Tamils, from Sri Lanka, because of occupation and foreign interference, bro, they were committing suicide attacks. They were one of the first to do suicide attacks. The kamikaze jets of the Japanese, they were doing that as well. It's always when another power comes in, interferes, and that's why the pastor of Obama, Jeremiah Wright, he said, and he mentioned some of the stuff that I mentioned, and he said Americans' chickens are coming home to roost. That was Jeremiah Wright, the pastor of Obama. Again, that's something you can check. You can check his speech online as well. The countries that don't have foreign interference, Indonesia. Indonesia is majority Muslim country. Yeah, Indonesia, majority Muslim country. No issue. Have you ever heard of an Indonesian terrorist?
I don't think so.
Malaysian terrorist. That's because there's no foreign occupation there. They've got no issue there. So people have got issues with immigration and migration, but those migrants are coming from countries that have been bombed by Western powers. Even today, weapons are going and arming the Israelis to kill Palestinians.
They have a right to defend themselves.
Well, you have weapons,
What do you want them to do?
and half of the population of Palestine are babies, infants under 18. And then British sending the weapons there. I know you probably feel this in your heart. Maybe you can articulate this or not. It's up to you. But I would say Saudi, Iraq, mind your own business. England, America, mind your own business. Worry about what's in your borders. You don't. If you interfere in other people's lives, you bomb them, they're going to be pissed. They're going to want revenge. And then to recruit them, people will use the excuse of religion. But I've already told you
There was another thing, yeah.
how Muslims
Sure, okay.
see non-Muslims.
Thank you. There was the slaves. I heard Muhammad, whatnot, when he owned black slaves. How does that? Do you agree with that today? If that was going on, or it happened in Saudi Arabia, do you agree with that?
Yeah, so Islam is the only religion, including Christianity, Judaism, and the likes, that actually encourages and rewards emancipation, manumission, like freeing slaves.
Right.
Yeah, so there's
It still goes on in Saudi Arabia today.
yeah, but Saudi Arabia isn't regarded as a Muslim country. Yeah, it's a Muslim majority country, but they don't necessarily. For example, they've got concerts taking place, inviting. Who they invited? Nicki Minaj. No, I think Nicki Minaj said no, but Chris Brown, all of these guys, yeah, they've gone over there. Like, I'm sure you know, that's not something like someone coming over shaking their backside, or Iggy Azalea was there as well, or bare people going over there doing madness. That's because they want to encourage tourism and this, that, because their responsibility is their country, what's in their borders. Otherwise, they'd be getting involved in Palestine, wouldn't they? Being Muslims.
Right.
Yeah. So they're responsible for their country. So yes, majority of the people there are Muslims, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they are implementing
The people that
Sharia
in
law.
Saudi that they own the slave owners. Do you condemn them?
Of course.
Okay.
What the-
Just wanted to ask.
Bro, slavery is a madness. In fact, if you look within the hadith of the Prophet, peace be upon him, any excuse to free slaves. But here's how the West did it.
But could you condemn Muhammad now? If that goes on, can you condemn Muhammad?
If Muhammad was alive, peace be upon him, today, slavery would have been finished.
And he'll just keep a few, won't he?
It would have been finished.
Yeah, right.
The Prophet was there. There's two schools of thought here, and I'm going to tell you both. One is a gradual getting rid of slavery, and the other is an immediate getting rid of slavery. And you know what happened? Did you know that you pay taxes?
Yes.
You know, it's only been 7 years that you stopped paying taxes to the slave owners. Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
Until about 7-8 years, our taxes were still being used to pay off the slave owners. That's a bit mad.
It's crazy.
78 years, 100 years plus, man's paying for slave owners. And what these guys saying, these brownies coming over here and taking our jobs, why is that not being discussed on BBC Question Time?
I'm not saying that.
I know you're not, I know, I'm just... But here's the thing, These sorts of things are very important. And the most bloodiest battle in America, the Civil War, one of the main reasons was to do with ending of slavery, the North versus the South. Immediate cutting off of slavery, you had a bloodbath, the most in the history of America. Now here's the thing, either you end something immediately and you risk millions dying, or you phase it out slowly, that we're not paying. Bro, slaves, where are they money? Why are they not getting paid compensation? Why are only slave owners getting paid compensation? Because they're the ones that had the connections.
There was another question.
Sure.
And it's going wide. With Sharia law, I've heard some things iffy.
Go ahead.
What was it? There was something. Can you help me out with Sharia law? There was something about something.
That's the wrong guy to be asking.
Yeah, but
He thinks Israel is still defending itself.
It's a tiny little place surrounded by people wanting to
You see,
eradicate them off the face
I'll
of the
speak
earth.
to you next.
What are you talking about?
I'll speak to you
With
next.
the Sharia law, what was it to do with? We're not
Well, just
equal.
somewhere. So where Dhimmis, Christians and Jews are the worst of creatures, below Muslims.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you can run.
But that's why I spoke to you at the beginning. I spoke to you at the beginning, isn't it? That if a non-Muslim is living under Muslims, he's being oppressed. The Prophet saying that I would side with him, advocate on his behalf on the Day of Judgment. The Prophet saying whoever harms him, then he's harmed me. Whoever's harmed me has harmed Allah. We're being told if they're imprisoned, you're supposed to use your resources, max out your resources to free them. In fact, I can give you examples of scholars like Ibn Taymiyyah, who's very famous, and he went to the Tartar leader to get the prisoners of war. His condition was, I'll give you the Muslim prisoners of war. He said, no, I want the non-Muslims that live under us as well. And he didn't leave until he had both of them. These, bro, I can give you the references for these as well. These are drawn up dead arguments. The dhimmis that he's talking about.
To be Muslim fighters on the front line.
So, you know,
Freeing slaves.
you know the thing that he said about Christians. You know, here in the UK, we pay. Everybody has to pay taxes, isn't it? Yeah, there's something called the tax, and within there you've got the national defence tax as well. Defence of UK and defence of Israel as well. But you've got the defence tax. Everybody has to pay it. Yeah. Now, if there is a pious Muslim imam who spends most of his time just in the mosque, just reading, worshipping, minding his own business, would he have to pay tax?
Really? Is that what it is?
Yes, he does.
Yeah.
But under the Muslims, the Christian monks that were there worshipping, minding their own business, did you know that they're exempt from paying tax? Did you know that?
Just as long as they stay in line.
Did you know that?
They have to keep in line.
You didn't know that?
Yeah, they keep in line.
Oh, quick question.
So here's the thing.
Nothing will happen.
Now,
Step out of line
one
and
thing
we'll
I
chop
would
your
say
head off.
is obviously you're going to hear, well, it's good that now you're hearing both sides. But as a balanced individual, when you ask a question,
Their behavior, they'll show you. They'll
generally, when a question is asked and the other person gives you an answer with references, like I told you what the Prophet did, what the schools of thought do, and what the scholars of the past did, that's a comprehensive answer. I can give you the references, you can check them out. But if a person still is not saying, you know what, the least he should say is, I respect that. I didn't know that, I respect that. However, what about this or what about that?
Would you like 2024? Would you like Sharia law to be introduced in Britain today?
In Britain, it's up to the British people.
What's your opinion?
No, but that's what I'm saying. My opinion is don't enforce something that the people don't want. If the British people don't want something, don't give them that.
Do you want it?
I want Sharia law.
when you curse in your mouth, you're
You know what Sharia law is? Sharia law, I'll give you an example. A Muslim praying is Sharia law. A Muslim being kind to somebody is Sharia law. A Muslim smiling at somebody is Sharia law. So, to us, Sharia law is Islam. Do you want Islam to spread? Yes, I want Islam to spread. If somebody doesn't want Islam, do I want to force Islam? No.
Would you like it to be supersede British law today?
I personally, if I was to tell you about some of the stuff in British law, it's concerning.
That's not my question.
No, but this is what I'm telling you. This is what I'm telling you. That if British people want Islamic law, have Islamic law, I'll encourage it. If they say, you know what, we don't want it, then no problem.
What would you like?
I think from the knowledge that I have, which many people hearing may not necessarily have, they would think Sharia law is oppressive and this and that.
It is.
But if they know about the reality of Sharia law, they would want it. If they want it, I would want it for them.
Would you like it over British law today?
Of course.
Okay. All right.
I think Sharia law is more advanced than many aspects of the British law. For example, if a Muslim living under British law was imprisoned, according to Sharia law, the government is supposed to exhaust their means to free them.
Right.
If a Muslim is harmed, then there needs to be like severe things in place to protect him. I don't feel protected. Just a couple of weeks ago, there was a guy that was gripping me up and, you know, tapping me on the face, and the guy was doing all sorts. I had to get the police involved. Yeah, so certain things I don't feel safe. When my wife and my mother go out, I have to make sure that I know how long it is they're going to be out and in, because hijabs get ripped off, they get called terrorists. It's a bit mad. So am I happy with the way the British law is when we got prevent that are, you know, where prevent is unnecessarily targeting statistically mostly Muslims in schools? Yes, I don't agree with that aspect of British law. What about in Schedule 7 where Muslims come in the ports and they are statistically more likely to be stopped? I don't agree with that. When it comes to British law, child benefit, I agree when it comes to British law. When it comes to freedom of speech, I like that thing about British law. However, freedom to insult, like, I don't like the discrepancies that you can insult, you know, you can insult Muslims, but you can't insult LGBT or Jews. So even when certain laws get put forward, there's a discrepancy.
I don't want to speak out of line.
Do
in
it.
terms of,
I told you, you can say what you want.
This is what I've heard anyway. You can clear up for me. With a Christian's life is worth half of a Muslim's. Can you explain that?
I'd love to know the reference of that. Never heard that.
Okay. All right. Okay.
In fact, we're told in the Quran that the closest to you are the Christians.
So why do you kill us on a daily basis then?
That's, you've got the angel on the right, you've got the devil on the left.
Is he the devil?
he's the devil.
That's a bit nasty.
And when I say devil, the stuff that he's saying, I'll tell you why he's the devil. Yeah, because somebody that's reasonable, when you give them evidences, you see somebody's a reasonable person. You give them credit for that. Where they're messed up, you say, you know what, you messed up there. When there's a genocide taking place, yeah, where over 180,000 people, according to the Lancet, have been killed since October 7th, and like 2,000, Israelis were killed. There's a major disparity. More bombs have been dropped in Palestine than two Hiroshima bombs.
Really? Well, if you had
Mostly
access to war,
children.
it would be the
Mostly
other way
children
round
have been
then.
killed. In fact, the UN says, you want to see hell on earth, go see how the children of Gaza are living. And you know what Naftali Bennett said, the ex-Prime Minister of Israel, said, we're fighting Nazis. And Herzog, the President Herzog, he said all of Gaza is responsible. All Palestinians are responsible.
One other question. So hypothetical, but
That's why I call him that.
Sure. In our lifetimes or whenever or in the future, do you think Sharia law will ever be introduced, say in Britain? I don't know about other countries, America, but
The way we
what do you
define
think?
Sharia law is like even our definition of what a Muslim is. A Muslim is somebody who submits to the will of God and follows the Prophet.
Right.
We believe when Jesus will come back, Jesus will unite Muslims, Christians, Jews, those that are obviously sensible and those that believe him, and he will be following the law of God.
Right.
We define the law of God as Sharia law. Bob will define it using something else, but we believe it will be the law of God.
Right.
I can give you certain terminologies you might think I'm evading, but we believe it's the law of God.
Do you think it's going to be supersede British law one day?
Of course, British law can't. British law is not even being. British law is not even being accepted by the British people over here. Like they've accepted Keir Starmer. Most people are unhappy with Keir Starmer. They've only voted in Keir Starmer because they were unhappy with Rishi Sunak.
I didn't vote for Labour.
There you go. There you go. But by default, he was going to come in later.
Yeah.
And here's what conservatives are saying. Conservatives are saying they would say stuff like, you know what, you got male and female toilets. But British law is trying to bring in, no, there's
Transgender. And
yeah. So that's British law. We disagree with that. The Orthodox Christians disagree with that as well. Yeah. So that I wouldn't agree with that element of British law. And there's a lot of backlash towards LGBT. There's a lot of backlash. You got Candace Owens that was, I would say she was oppressed under Daily Wire and Ben Shapiro. And she said that she couldn't even say things like Christ is King. And the way Zionists have got America by the sack. She says it's ridiculous. We need to take away Zionist control from UK, US, and that sort of stuff. Bro, British law doesn't even have the flexibility to exercise British law.
The thing is, and again, I could be out of line here. I'm no historian and blah, blah, blah. If you go back, I don't know, 100, 200, 300 years, I think, so I've been told England, Britain's predominantly a Christian country.
It is,
whatnot.
absolutely.
But so the question is, with Islam, I've got no problem with Islam, really.
Yeah.
But, like,
You should.
Is it like, why is it that Islam, it wants to be forced onto a Christian country? Or when you said you want to see it here one day?
Yeah, but don't try to misconstrue what I'm saying.
Okay.
The one thing that I mentioned repeatedly to you that maybe you construed as me evading the question, it was consent. But consent is seen as me evading the question. Bro, it's never going to be forced. You can't force. In the Quran it says there's no compulsion in religion. I can't force you to accept Islam, and I can't force you to live under Islam. It's up to you, bro.
Yeah.
And the fastest growing religion here in the UK is Islam. If those people want Islam, then that's up to them.
It's Christianity.
You can look into it. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'll give you the evidences and you can look into it. If I'm wrong, you're more than welcome to come to me and correct me. Yeah? But objectively, from the research and the studies that are out there, it's Islam. It's the fastest growing religion. But post World War II, UK, yes, it was a Christian country, but they were the empire that was involved in World War II. And post empire, they struggled significantly. That's why they had something called the 1948 British Nationality Act, where they called people from their colonies to come and help grow the country.
Right.
You know Freddie Mercury from Queen?
Yeah, he died. He died in '91, I think. Yeah.
He was born in Zanzibar.
AIDS, yeah.
Yeah, Zanzibar, and his parents
He
were
was
Indian.
Correct.
Yeah, and his actual name is Farouk
Okay.
Balsara. Yeah, so he came in. You had the Windrush generation coming in from Jamaica.
50s, yeah.
They were brought in to develop the country, and that's the thing. Then, when immigration became a bit of a thing, then they, after about 25 years, they changed it. But you don't see Muslim countries that are in the same predicament as the British Empire. The British Empire, according to a Guardian article, you can check this yourself, is ruled 90% of the globe. And they've raped, pillaged. In India, India was like 25% of the global economy India was responsible for. When the British left, it's only 3%. They pillaged. The crown on the head of the Queen, the Kohinoor gem, from India. Bare stuff, loads of stuff taken there. And even the Africans, the Kikuyu tribe, took the Brits to court. And in the court, the declassified document said that they were using pliers to chop off the balls of the Mau Mau and of the people suspected to be the Mau Mau. Yeah, they chopped them off. They would pinch them. They would stick rods up the anuses of little girls. This was being done under the British Empire. So when you hear stuff like this, and when you hear that the Brits were complicit in dividing up Africa under the Berlin Conference, they were involved, and there's wars taking place today. Sudan. Sorry, bro. Sorry. So there's stuff even taking place today because of decisions that were taken a long time ago. So what I'm saying is that there is resentment. There is resentment, and there is what these people would say is just cause for them.
I just think I'm the wrong person. I know you give me a lot of information. I'm sure you're all right, but I'm the wrong person to be talking to, about what you're saying. I think you need to speak to someone a bit more well versed.
I have.
You know what I mean?
I do every week.
Talk to Bob.
Bob is.
You ever debated him?
Bob is interested in one thing.
What's that?
Yeah, and he said this as well. He wants Christians to be armed, and he thinks that there's something happening. He's aligning with Tommy Robinson. So Bob's mentality, I think Speaker's Corner has, I would say, radicalized him. So Bob is of a certain mentality that it's either Christianity or nothing.
You've never debated him?
I've spoken to Bob.
Okay.
I've spoken to Bob. Many people have spoken to Bob. He's known here. But the issue there is, hopefully when you go home, the reason why I would argue you're the right person is you go home, Google every single fact that I've said.
I
Yeah?
remember.
No, but it's going to be on camera.
yeah.
It's going to be on
Please write
camera.
down your channel.
Yeah, I will do. So it's going to be there. You can check it up.
Yeah.
And bro, you have free will.
Yeah.
You can check this up yourself. You can believe it, you can disbelieve it. But the guy that was on your left, he's not necessarily your proverbial left. He's not going to mention this stuff because it's a certain mindset. Like I come to Speaker's Corner with the mentality of bringing people together.
Sure.
I don't want to drive people apart. I think there's too many people doing that anyway. But I do it using academia and references. Now, people like that, I don't think are helpful, where even when you tell them sensible stuff, they're unwilling to listen.
Yeah.
Now, yourself, would you argue that from what I told you, a lot of stuff that I was saying made logical sense to you?
Yeah, I'd go with that. Yeah.
So that's all you want from people, bro. Listening, checking it out, and saying, you know what, I had this conversation with you last week. I'd love to have a follow-up.
Knowledge is power. Knowledge is power.
And that's why, bro, I spend time learning, researching this stuff, knowing what people come, debating, discussing with them, because it's very important now. I don't think saying that Israel is defending itself and Muslims hate Christians and this and that, I think that's Zionist propaganda. I think that's Christian extremist propaganda. I think that's a very radical way of thinking and seeing these
One
things.
thing I'm just a bit uncomfortable with is when you said you want to see Sharia law. Because I think we should stick with British.
But here's what I said to you as well.
Yeah.
Whether it's Sharia law, whether it's Christian law, whether it's Russian law,
Yeah.
if the British people vote for it, bro,
Sure.
it's up to the British people. That's the thing that you miss.
Democratic. Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing is, maybe you've seen certain discussions and it's that, oh, I want to get him to say this, bro. My thing from the get-go was, it's up to the British people. If they want Sharia law, they want Mosaic law, they want Christian law, they want communist law, they want socialist law, it's up to the British people. Yeah, British people yesterday believed homosexuality was a mental illness. Today they believe something different.
My uncle's gay. He really is. So yeah.
So it's up to the British people what they want.
Yeah.
It's up to us to engage in discussions. They want to accept Islam, they want Britain to go in a certain direction. That's up to you.
Yeah.
And that's why I think it's mostly that, I think it's that bias that was creeping in when that worry is there. Never gonna say go out and enforce people. And I gave you a reference from the Quran.
You've got to come here with a neutral mindset, of course.
You do, because I gave you the example of Jesus,
Yeah.
the parable where he said, those people that didn't accept me as the king, bring them forth and kill them. Bro, where have Muslims ever said something like this? We don't say anything like that. And then if somebody comes, what about this? Or I can quote the Crusades, I can quote the Lord's Resistance Army. I don't think that's helpful though.
There was one other thing.
Yeah.
Again, I'm no learned person, it was to do with something to do with expel. You've got the Jews and the Christians. No, expel everyone apart from the Muslims. Is that right, or have I got that wrong?
That's wrong because,
Something like that,
yeah,
yeah.
because the Muslims would live, I told you, in Spain, side by side with Christians and Jews.
Yeah.
Even at the time of the caliphs as well. The non-Muslims, why do you think we have all of these laws protecting the non-Muslims living under Muslims? Because they would. And I gave you examples that, look, this Muslim killed this disbeliever under Umar bin Abdul Aziz, and his family were asked what should happen to the Muslim. They said kill him. The Muslim would be killed. So if they were all expelled, and did you know, under Islam and Muslims, a Muslim man can marry a Christian. Did you know that? Now, if you did, yeah?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So if a Muslim was to marry a Christian, his father-in-law and mother-in-law are Christians or disbelievers. So if he believes that all Christians are bad and this and that, how is he going to have a sensible... Firstly, why is he getting married? And secondly, how is he going to respect his in-laws?
There was one other question. Again, I'm going off. So, is it true, I don't know if it's Sharia law, but a Christian can become a Muslim, but a Muslim can't become a Christian? Is that right?
Muslims, we believe that Islam is the truth. Just like Christians believe that Christianity is the truth. If you don't accept Jesus, that's it. Like, it's problematic. So it's the same with us. So we're never going to say, yeah, you're allowed to do this or you're allowed to do that.
Right.
There have been cases, for example, in the Ottoman Empire, there was somebody called Vava Nam, yeah, and she accepted Christianity. She was expelled from the land. She was told to go. Rather than killed, she was told to go. Whilst according to the Old Testament, there's the apostasy laws there as well. But we have examples where, no, we wouldn't immediately kill the person. We'd look at the treaties that we have with other countries and this and that, and it's done on a case-by-case basis.
I need to go to the toilet, but thank you so much.
No, it was a pleasure talking to you.
I really enjoyed that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no.
Can you write
Take
down
care,
your
Rob.
channel?
Yeah.